Hello everyone, I'm Scott Darby. I'm a previous president of Oceans, and after many discussions with people in Oceans, I've realised a lot of the membership don't have the understanding of the Ocean statutes and the rules of procedures that they should have. So I've taken it upon myself to create the presentation. It is not following them line by line, it's trying to tell more of a story. This is the first draft. Hopefully it will be improved later, and God willing, the comm department will use this as inspiration and create a much better video than what I'm creating. However, that being said, let me explain the Ocean statutes and rules and procedures. I should add it is 1:30 a.m. in the morning for me because I'm very busy trying to record this, so any mistakes, please bear with me. So what is Oceans Network? So the full name of Oceans Network is the Erasmus Plus Organisation for Cooperation, Exchange and Networking Student and Alumni Network of International Exchange Programs, which is abbreviated to Oceans Network, Oceans and E plus Oceans, and is hereinafter referred to as Oceans. As you can see, at some points I will take direct screenshots from the statutes themselves, but all of the wording is directly copied from the statutes and the rules and procedures. In the top right here, you will see whether it's from the statutes or whether it's from the rules and procedures. So what is our mission? So our mission and core values are: Oceans envisage being the leading organisation for international cooperation, exchange and networking among international credit mobility students and alumni of the Erasmus Plus programme. Our mission? Oceans' mission is to provide a platform for personal and professional development and to promote exchange through networking, communication and collaboration. And our core values: Oceans is grounded on core values of equity, mutual understanding, tolerance and progressiveness. So who can become a member of Oceans? So students and alumni of Erasmus Plus, International Credit Mobility and Legacy Mobilities prior to 2014 and the creation of Erasmus Plus are eligible to become regular members of Oceans. In practical terms, what does that mean? So, what is international credit mobility? International credit mobility is defined as supports the mobility of individuals enrolled or employed at higher education institutions from a program country, European member state, and third-party countries associated to the program to a partner country, third countries not associated to the program, or vice versa. And there is a link to where this definition is from. So what is a program country and what is a partner country? In short, the countries on the left in yellow here are the program countries. They're mainly EU plus Turkey, plus then you have a few in the Balkans that have become program countries. What is a partner country? Basically the rest of the world, in short. So as a member, what are your rights and obligations? So Article 8 of the Statutes, rights and obligations of a member. A member can apply for a position in the board, vote in elections, attend the AGM, convene an extraordinary meeting as provided in Article 11. Section 2. Every member shall respect the statutes, rules and procedures, code of conduct, and all official documents. Provide truthful information to keep their online membership profile updated and help to promote and attain the goals of the organisation. The online membership is once you become a member of Oceans, we will invite you to join the community portal, and on there it allows you to connect with Oceans members and you can update your profile so other Oceans members will know more about yourself. Article 9, termination of membership. Membership is a privilege, not a right. And if you do not follow the rules and procedures, the statutes, the code of conduct, you can be terminated as a member. So, Section 1. Any member may cancel their membership at any time by sending a written notice by email to the board. The membership is immediately cancelled following the sending of the notice. Section 2. Oceans may cancel at any time by unanimous decision of the board, provided indefutable evidence is presented that the individual has grossly violated in speech or action the core values of the organisation as defined in Title 2. or has severely damaged the reputation or interest of the organisation, the member in question has been informed about the vote on the membership cancellation at least 3 days before the decision is taken. This only ever occurred once in Ocean's history, but it is a step that we may need them to take, but it's a last resort. Like I said, it's only ever happened once in Ocean's history that we've cancelled the membership of an individual. Core values. What are the core values of Oceans? So excellence. Oceans members value, commit to achieving excellence through our work with volunteerism as the bedrock of our organisation. We offer our expertise, knowledge and skills to provide to our members and partners with inclusive quality services. We seek to have a positive impact at local, national and international levels. Respect. As members of an international community, we value respect in interactions. We come from diverse backgrounds and respect each and everyone's singularities. As we work towards building strong international cooperation, Oceans membership are expected to showcase understanding and acceptance, as well as embrace the individual differences that exist within and outside the organisation. Accountability. As volunteers, we are accountable for every action and decision we take on behalf of Oceans, embracing and integrating accountability into everything we do individually and collectively, honour our commitments and uphold the reputation of the organisation. We take our membership of our work and strive to deliver excellence, always focusing on finding sustainable solutions. As reliable members of the organisation, we take responsibility in timely accomplish our work with the highest quality possible. This is essentially why Oceans is such a great organisation to be part of. Everyone really does follow these values, and every member I've ever met is always trying to give back and help other members and support other members. They go to members that have been involved for over 15 years to brand new members, and it's a wonderful place to be. But these are the core values that do make that occur. The last one, progressiveness. So as global citizens, we continue to aspire for Oceans and our community to progress and develop, adapting to the changes of our times. We give value to the internationalization, sustainable development, and celebrate diversity. As students and alumni of international exchanges, we utilize our knowledge, talents, and skills to pursuing innovative and creativity that will serve the interests of every Oceans member and our respective communities. Section 2 of this, the organisation adheres to the principles enshrined within the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All members have the right to not be discriminated against based upon grounds such as gender, race, religion, ethnicity, social origin. All members must adhere to these principles, which are essential to building an inclusive organisation. This value is in there. The key thing is, as Oceans has become bigger and grown, we've tried to align ourselves with more international bodies, and that is one of the big reasons why it's in there. We've always been very accepting of other cultures, other peoples, but we have put in there in the statutes now that it is written in there. But this has always occurred, and I'm certain will always occur within Oceans. Structure. So, what is the structure of Oceans? Essentially, we have an annual general meeting annually, hence the name, but you can call an extraordinary general meeting if there is an emergency. But the main structure of Oceans is in the board itself. So the board is the governing body of Oceans that leads the organisation and manages it for all the members. So the organisation structure, Oceans shall have the following departments. We have a communication department, a community development department, project activity department, international affairs and internal affairs. For the purpose of these statutes, 1 year is defined as 12 months between 2 consecutive handovers, which may be shorter or longer than 12 months, but shall not be less than 9 months and no longer than 15 months. What that last part is for is when a board, which consists of these 5 departments plus the president and vice president, is elected, there is a period where the old board and the new board coexist essentially, and the new board does not take over from the old board until the handover meeting occurs. And as stated, this should happen no less than 9 months from when the old board had its handover meeting to ensure they get a full term and no longer than 15 months. This is to prevent the old board from holding on to power, which has never occurred but is written in the statute just in case. But according to the statutes, when a new board is elected, the old board is still in charge until there is a handover meeting between the old board and the new board. The board, the composition. The board shall comprise the president, the vice president, and the heads of department, as I previously said. Oceans has an objective to ensure gender and geographical balance with the representatives of the organisation, especially the board. The board shall be responsible for overseeing the functions of Oceans and shall be responsible for the daily management, administration and representation of the organisation. The board shall ensure compliance for all the statutes, obligations, safeguard all corporate legal documents and records of the organisation. Section 2. I've always believed we should have the best people regardless of gender and geographic location. However, as we have grown and the board represents more and more people, it is becoming more and more crucial to have that gender and geographical balance, because decisions on the board can affect people in different areas, and it's good that those people feel that they are being represented by the board and not that the board is over-representing one particular region or one particular gender. So while I would prefer to have a strictly merit-based system, we should lean towards ensuring gender and geographical balance. How this tends to happen is, if there is an imbalance within the board, that board tends to reach out to other genders and other people in different geographical locations to try and recruit them onto the next board, which I think is the best way. So we ensure that we have the best people on the board and also it's gender balanced and geographically balanced. So what does this look like? You have the president, the vice president, the head of communications, head of community development, head of projects activity, head of international affairs, and head of internal affairs. Now you will notice the president and vice president have different colours than the heads of departments. This is because how they are selected, which I will elaborate on further. So the board responsibilities. 1. Defined. The rules of procedures serve as a supplementary document to the Statutes of Oceans Erasmus, outlining the practical aspects of the organisation. So now we're on the rules of procedures here. The board responsibilities. Executive decisions are made by the board by an absolute majority is achieved. This is crucial. All decisions are made by the board as a whole. No individual in the board can make a decision without the board. And like it says here, it's an absolute majority. So that is generally 5 members of the board agree to it, not just 4. Board members must be notified of all voting activities at least 4 calendar days in advance. If one or more board members are absent for more than 4 days without notice, decisions can be made by a simple majority of the remaining members. There we are, self-explanatory. If a board member is unavailable to vote and requests an extension within 4 days of the vote, the board should consider postponing. However, in urgent cases, the president may proceed with voting and providing justification for urgency. Anonymous voting. Anonymous voting requires the presence of at least one independent observer. This would actually often be a member of the advisory board, which we will cover later. At the end of each year, the board must produce an annual report, which includes the information of the use of the statutes, forming the basis of future amendments. Board meetings. Board meetings may be convened by the president or a majority vote of the board. The president is responsible for scheduling the meetings and preparing the agenda. This is one of the key things about the president. So, they're essentially the first among the equals on the board. And essentially, they are more of the chairman of the board, and they manage the board and run the meetings. But all decisions are made by the board, not by the president. Same thing with the vice president. They don't make any decision on their own. They work with the board to make a decision. In-person meetings may be called by the president with at least 20 business days notice, ensuring financial feasibility. This rarely happens because we're such a global organisation now. Meetings cannot really be organised in person without the support of a service provider. Board decisions are made by a simple majority, by each member having a vote. In case of a tie, the president vote counts double. So where board decisions are made, we only need a simple majority. The president can break that tie if it is a tie. So say if only six members have been able to attend, the president, whichever side the president leans on, can overrule that. That decision will be made. All members of the network have the privilege of suggesting items for the board meeting agendas. Such suggestions must be sent in writing to the head of the communication department. Only items received at least 5 days prior to the meeting can be considered. The board reserves the right to prioritize individual agenda items. So any member can submit any discussion point to the board to discuss at their board meetings. However, time is limited. So just because you submit something doesn't mean it will be discussed at the board meeting. But the board always tries to ensure it is. Back to the statutes. So the board elections. So here's the difference. So the president and vice president elections. Section 1. The Commission of Presidential Elections have responsibility for conducting the president and vice president elections. The commission shall be composed of a director and deputy director appointed by the board. The president and vice president elections shall be conducted in a time frame within 1 year. The candidates of the president and vice president positions can present themselves to the members of the organization in an online town hall meeting arranged by the Commission on Presidential Elections at least 2 weeks prior to the start of casting votes. The candidates for president and vice president positions receiving an absolute majority of all cast votes, 50% plus 1, shall be proclaimed elected. In case the position remains vacant after a first round, a second round runoff shall be organised between the two candidates with the highest number of votes. The president and vice president shall have a term of 1 year, and this shall begin on the organisation handover meeting. Again, previously stated, they do not commence their term until the handover meeting occurs. The president and vice president may hold only one position within the organisation. However, coming back to the handover meeting, generally what happens is when a new board is elected, the old board will heavily consult the new board in what actions they should take in their last month, 2 or 3 months in office. And they will work together to ensure that there is a seamless transition between the old board and the new board, and that the old board doesn't take actions that the new board is just going to overrule once they come into power. This has generally always worked, and it's created a good bond between the two boards, so when the new board needs assistance, it can often reach out to the old board. But that is how it works. Election of president and vice president. The election of the president and vice president are held yearly, and the eligibility of any E plus Oceans member can submit an application to become next president or vice president. Eligible candidates are those that meet the criteria outlined in Rules 5 and 7 respectively. We'll cover those. Candidates cannot run simultaneously for both president and vice president positions. If the outgoing president is not running again, he or she is responsible for creating the voting schedule and its communication. If the president is running again, the board nominates a different member of the board for this task. All E plus members are eligible to cast their votes online after identification. This is similar to what we've written beforehand, but the key thing here to highlight is if you are an elected president and you are running again to be president, you cannot be on the election commission. You cannot be in charge of running the election that you are also running in. That's the key point of this you need to take away. Board elections. So, heads of department elections. The president and vice president shall be responsible for conducting the heads of department selections. So, the president and vice president are elected first by all the membership, and they then run the head of department elections. The head of department election shall be conducted after the vice president the president and vice president elections, and in a time frame within 1 year. It's generally done within a month, but they put 1 year here, but it should be within a month really. 2 months depending on how the elections have been. The candidate for the respective head of department position receiving a simple majority of votes casted shall be proclaimed elected. The head of department shall have a term of 1 year, which shall begin on the occasion of the handover meeting. The head of department shall hold only one position in the organisation. So you can't have a person that's the head of 2 departments, obviously, but it is stated there. General rules on elections and procedures. All members are entitled to 1 vote per position being elected. Voting shall be made in a secret ballot in the online community portal. Voting on the president and vice president elections is open to all members, and voting of the heads of departments elections is open to members of the respective departments for which the positions are being elected. This is crucial here, section 3. So all the membership get to vote on the president and vice president. However, the heads of departments are voted on only by the people within their departments. What the people in the departments are doing is they're electing somebody to represent them on the board, because they're doing the work. So the communications team is doing the work of communications, and they choose the person they want to represent them on the board. As I said previously, everyone on the board has one vote. So this gives active members more influence on the board than inactive members. So I highly encourage everyone in Ocean to become an active member and to try and join a department and contribute to it. That said, all heads of departments tend to follow the will of the president and vice president because they have a mandate from all the membership. However, they are under no obligation to follow the will of the president and vice president. Their role is to follow the will of their department and to work for the best of their department. Section 4. Completion of the board elections shall be followed by organising a handover meeting in which the outgoing board hands over to the new incoming board. I've said this many times. The total number of terms a member can serve on the board is 2. Now, this was brought in by the European Commission for some reason, and it's been a terrible, terrible thing. What we had previously was you could serve on the board for 3 years, but no more than two years in any one role. What this allowed was people could come on as a board member for a head of department, gain some experience as a board, and then run for president or vice president and have 2 years serving as president and vice president, having already gained experience on the board as the head of department. And this will become crucial even more later when I highlight the requirement for running as president and vice president, which almost nobody fulfills when they run, but I will outline it though when it comes up. Additional election procedures are defined in the rules of procedure. So vacancies. So a vacancy arises due to the absence over 2 months without a formal communication and justification, death or resignation. We have actually had a death, sadly. Like we have had board members die, and it's really tragic. So we have this procedure in place to resolve that. In case of a vacancy in the position of president, the vice president shall automatically serve as the president for the duration of the unexpired term. In case of a vacancy in the position of the president shall cover the role of the vice president for the duration of the unexpired term. In case of a vacancy in the position of the head of department, an election within a month from the moment the position becomes vacant shall be conducted by the board to fill the respective position for the remainder of the term. The president. Okay, what are the roles? The president is the primary representative of the organisation in all affairs, in particular regarding the cooperation with the European Commission, Directorate General for Oceans and Culture, and the Erasmus Alumni Alliance, and the service provider. The president is, with the assistance of the board, responsible for ensuring the overall performance and regular operation of the organisation. The detailed duties of the president are described in the rules of procedures. Here we are. So providing over board meetings, preparing meetings agenda, leading the creation of the annual work plan, coordinating amendments to the statutes and rules and procedures, overseeing advocacy actions, supervising department heads, collaborating with ESSA partner organisations, leading the network efforts and establishing partnerships, leading the network efforts and establish partnerships with other profit and non-profit organisations for joint projects, take part in relevant ESSA working groups and working jointly with sister organisations. As outlined here, the president is essentially the chairperson of the board. They're the figurehead for the organisation, and they will represent Oceans where possible. However, as stated, they are not in charge of the board. They just manage the board meetings, and then the board as a whole decides what decisions are made, not the president. Requirements of presidential candidates, but I mentioned previously, the last point, almost no one ever makes it. So a strong motivation, commitment to the network, awareness of the key challenges faced by the network, understanding of ESSA partner organisations, active membership for at least 6 months, a weekly average contribution of 10 hours a week. So, most people within Ocean's network that are active in some way will meet points 5.1, 5.3, and 5.4. If you're not on the board, you will struggle to be awareness of the key challenges faced by the network. And if you're not on the board, it's very, very rare you will have a weekly average contribution of 10 hours a week. However, we allow people to run without meeting the 10 hours per week simply because you only have 2 years on the board total, and therefore once you would end up with in a situation where someone spends a year getting to be the head of department, figures out how it all works, and then would leave to become president or vice president. Whereas it can be 2 years in that position, they can really make an impact on that department. And some people have done that in the past. We used to have people that would be the head of department for 2 years, then president for 1, or vice president for 1, or vice versa. They'll spend a year getting to know it, actually decide, I would rather, I can make a better impact as president and vice president, and then move into that role. But this is crucial. Not many people that run for president and vice president meet the average contribution of 10 weeks, 10 hours a week on average. The board, the vice president. The vice president supports the work of the president. The vice president represents Oceans in the ESSA liaison group. The vice president is responsible for reviewing the annual plans and making a follow-up during the respective implementation periods. In case the vice president's absence, the vice president shall assume the duties of the president. The detailed duties of the vice president are described in the rules and procedures. Duties of the vice president. Providing the president with active support in leading the network, coordinating its initiatives. Providing support in preparing the agenda for board meetings and chairing the meeting when the president's not available. Coordinating the establishment of an annual working plan for E+ Oceans. Participating in board meetings, undertaking ad hoc tasks depending on the strategic needs of the network and ESSA. Proposing procedures to ensure the most efficient way of involving Oceans E+ Oceans members in joint activities, taking part in relevant ESSA working groups, and working jointly with sister organisations. So, when I was president, what I spent most of my time doing, arranging board meetings, and then essentially helping the heads of department. So when they were too busy to finish a task, I would step in and finish that. And then I had 2 wonderful vice presidents at different times that really assisted me. When I was too busy, I would lean upon them and they would pick up the slack that I couldn't pick up. And that's generally how it works. Everybody gives back to everybody else. The requirements for a vice president. Motivation and commitment to the network. A good degree of awareness for the main challenges faced by the network. A minimum degree of understanding of the functioning of other ESSA organisations. A weekly average contribution of 8 hours a week. Again, most people in Oceans can meet requirements 7.1, 7.2, and 7.3, but unless you're on the board, it's very unlikely you're meeting the requirements of 7.4. However, we've always allowed candidates to run, simply because of the 2-year rule. The board, so head of departments. Each department is headed by a head. The head shall appoint a deputy head to assist them. So each department shall have a head and a deputy head. The deputy head is not elected and is appointed by the head. In case of the head's absence, the deputy head shall temporarily replace them and assume their duties. The heads are responsible for ensuring the overall performance of the departments and act as a nexus between the board and each department. The detailed duties of the head of departments are described in the rules and procedures. Number of participants. There are at least 5 number of departments. There are 5 departments that serve the well-functioning of the organisation, namely communications, community development, project activity, international affairs, and internal affairs. Membership in department. Membership in departments is subject to an application process in the online community portal. Membership applications shall be reviewed and approved by the heads of the concerned department to which such applications are submitted. The heads have a right to regularly revise membership in their departments for the sake of effective functioning of them. It can be removing memberships and adding members, When there is an election for the head of department, often the membership is closed, so you can't just join up just to vote. But that said, the head of department should remove members before the voting if they've been inactive. However, this should be done in consultation with the rest of the board to make sure everything is fair. Rules and procedures. So, duties of the heads of department. So, communication, promoting Oceans, Erasmus Plus mobility, managing social media channels, developing toolkits and new newsletter, co-managing website content, community development, supporting events, networking, membership growth, engaging members and assessing organisational needs, liaising with universities and related institutions, projects, being a point of contact for the project ideas, supporting project applications and offering guidance, reviewing successful applications to inform future projects, international affairs, liaising with universities and partner organisations, managing national representative and developing international strategies. So community development and project, the key difference is projects is applying for funding from ESSA. Community is focused around community development that isn't funded. Now these two can overlap, but it can be like group meetups, like online check-ins, online induction for new members. But community development is often looking at stuff that isn't funded and supporting events that are run with members' time without funding. And projects is about applying for funding to run projects. The head of department and deputy head of department. So the election process for the head of departments are internally elected by the respective department members yearly. To be a candidate for the head of department position, it is required to be an active member of the department for at least 2 months. The election for the head of department is an internal process at the level of the department. If the position of head of department is not filled by the department elected representative, the board has the right to appoint a person for the position. To be clear here, this has never occurred, as in like the board has never appointed a head of department. It would only occur if the department could not elect their own head for whatever reason. Election of the deputy heads of departments are internally elected by the effective members yearly to be a candidate for head of. So this is only referring to if there isn't a head. Then you like the deputy head who would then become the head. The head appoints the deputy head of department. The department position is required to be an active member of the department for at least 2 months. If it is the responsibility of the respective head of department to ensure the deputy head is nominated fairly with the department within 3 weeks from the appointment of the head of department, the election of the deputy head of department is an internal process at the level of department. In the position of deputy head is not filled by the department elected representative, the board has the right to appoint a person for this position. Substitution. For inactivity or poor work in case of uninformed absence or poor results of the head of department, 3 members of the board or 3 members of the respective department have the right to request initiating internal elections for the position. On such occasion, a written request must be sent to the board on behalf of the department members, or vice versa. In the case the request is initiated by board members, the document should also be made publicly accessible to the core network group. The board should investigate the matter and mediate. If no compromise is reached, a new election can be requested by the board at the level of the department. The election is to be made public to the core network group. After a mediation period of 2 weeks, a new election must be held if the board does not withdraw their request. The department may elect the same person again. So, if you've elected somebody to the department and for whatever reason they're not doing a good job, the department can replace them or the board can replace them. There you are. Requirements for the head of department candidates. You must be a motivation and commitment to the network, awareness of network challenges, active membership in the department for at least 2 months. Most head of departments meet this criteria. In fact, all of them do, from what I've known. Elections of the board. Board elections are held annually. Eligible members meeting the criteria in rules 5 to 7 may submit candidacies. Candidates cannot run for board president and vice president simultaneously. All these are on the website, by the way. Like the rules and the statutes and the rules and procedures. So I advise you to go to the website, and then when it says rules 5 and 7, you can look up directly those rules. Departments and other units. National representatives. So we do have national representatives in oceans. These are managed by the International Affairs. And let's see what they do. They shall be the national representatives to represent oceans in their country. America does have 3 because it is such a big nation. So you can have more than one national representative for a country. The national representative belongs to the International Affairs Department. The national representative selection shall be conducted by the head of the International Affairs Department. The selection criteria be defined in a separate document. What is the duties of heads of department? Again, with the managing the national representatives. So the International Affairs, one of their big jobs is managing the national reps, because they will do a lot of the work with liaison with universities and partner organisations in their country. The Advisory Committee. The Advisory Committee shall support the board on a consultative basis related to the strategic decisions and operational processes of the organisation. The Advisory Committee shall be composed of Oceans members who have held a position in the board as President or Vice President. Members who are interested to serve in the Advisory Committee shall confirm their roles by writing an email to the board. The Advisory Committee may participate in board meetings. The Advisory Committee does not have voting rights. So the Advisory Committee was set up to maintain institutional knowledge within the organisation. It is purely there to help and support the board. The only time they have a role outside of this is when somebody has a complaint about another member in Oceans, and they would normally go to the board, but if that member is on the board, then they can come to the Advisory Committee instead, and that will be outlined later. But they are purely there to assist the board and ensure institutional knowledge isn't lost. The Advisory Committee serves as a consultative body providing expertise, guidance and recommendation to the board. It does not have decision-making authority, but offers strategic advice to enhance the organisation's performance. The Advisory Committee shall consist of an even number of members with relevant experience in oceans and have to be part of all the boards of the organisation. Ex-presidents and vice-presidents have preference to be added to the Advisory Committee. Members are appointed by the board on their expertise and contributions to the network. Advisory Committee members may include external experts not currently involved in daily operations of Erasmus plus Oceans. Advisory Committee members serve a 1-year term that may be renewed based on the board's discretion on an indefinite basis. So, advisory committees are renewed on a yearly basis. This is generally automatic, and it is generally made up of previous presidents and vice presidents. However, it does not have to be made up of previous presidents and vice presidents. You can bring in an external person if needed. Duties. Advising the board on strategic initiatives, partnership opportunities for organisational growth, providing feedback on key decisions, annual work plans and significant amendments to the statutes and rules and procedures. Supporting board members to project reviews, offering expertise in development of impactful projects and collaboration, offering insight into broad trends in international education and organisational development. The Advisory Committee can support and advise the running board in measures of the network. Meetings. The Advisory Committee will meet at least twice annually, virtually, to discuss strategic. The Advisory Committee will submit an annual advisory report to the board, summarising its recommendations, key observations and advice for the board in future directions of the network. Oceans in ESSA. So Oceans is a founding member of ESSA. ESSA stands for the Erasmus Student Alumni Alliance. Oceans shall be represented to ESSA. Oceans representation to ESSA shall be through the ESSA Liaison Group. Very simple. The European Commission. Oceans recognises the role and support provided by the European Commission's Directorate General of Education and Culture and the European Education and Culture Executive Agency, in particular the services provided via ESSA service provider. The European Commission shall, when relevant, be invited to attend and speak at the organisation meetings, receive meeting minutes and other documentation. The European Commission may mandate an certified to attend and speak at Ocean's meetings on the EC's behalf. Neither the EC nor the SP has voting rights when attending such meetings. So Oceans gets all of its funding from ESSA, which gets all of its funding from the European Commission. So we are heavily dependent upon the European Commission, and we have always worked to have a good relationship with the European Commission. And we've always tried to make the relationship a win-win. Like, how can we support the Commission, and how can the Commission support us? And I hope that continues. Annual general meetings and extraordinary general meetings. So, the AGM is the highest policy-making body of the organisation. It shall determine the policies and direction of the organisation. The AGM and EGM shall have the sole role to vote the Ocean Statutes amendments. The AGM is composed of regular members of the organisation who attend the AGM in person or online. The AGM shall be convened each year no later than the end of August. It shall be presided over by the President. The principle of one member, one vote shall be followed in all deliberations of the AGM. Decisions of the AGM shall be made by an absolute majority, 50% plus 1, of all votes cast. The board announces the AGM to all Ocean members at least 4 months prior to the meeting. The board is responsible for the selection of those members that will be invited to attend the AGM in person. In-person participants are required to participate in the entire AGM. The AGM shall take place at a location within the European Union. Minutes shall be drawn up at each AGM. These shall be approved by the board and kept in Ocean's archive. The minutes shall be published on the official website and other relevant platforms of the organisation within 4 weeks of the conclusion of the AGM. I want to address Section 9. Previously, Ocean did not have to have its AGM within the European Union. However, when the statute was amended, the European Commission insisted that this be the case, and it has occurred. However, this has created a significant burden upon visa requirements for certain members. So hopefully this will change in the future, where we can have an AGM outside the European Union every other year or every 3 years. Third year, and maybe even every fourth year. But it would be good, as we are a global organisation, to be able to have an AGM outside the European Union, so those people that struggle to get visas are able to attend. Extraordinary general meeting. An EGM shall be organised if the board decides to do so, or if at least 10 Oceans members request it. The EGM shall be organised within 4 weeks from the moment the board has taken the decision, or the request by at least 10 members have been submitted to the board. An EGM is fully equivalent to an AGM. All provisions in these statutes relate to an AGM shall therefore also apply to an EGM. So an EGM is if we need to make an emergency change to the statutes, or something urgent has come up that needs addressing, it can be addressed, and this is the mechanism to address it. Final provisions. Statutes and amendments. So any member that has the support of 2 other members has the right to propose an amendment to the statutes by formulating a concrete and specific proposal and sending it by email to the board. The proposal shall include the reason for the proposed amendments, as well as the names and contacts of the members proposing them. After the board receives an amendment proposal, it shall submit to a vote at either the following AGM for non-urgent matters or calling an EGM for urgent matters. An amendment proposal voted upon at the AGM or EGM have to be made available to all members at least 2 weeks before the respective meeting. On an exceptional basis, proposals may also be submitted at a later time, including during an AGM and EGM, if they have the support of at least 5 members. To be approved, an amendment proposal shall receive a positive vote of 2/3 majority of all casted votes. Amendments to the statutes are counted from the time of their approval to entering their immediate effect thereby. As long as the European Commission remains the main sponsor of the organisation, ratified to the amendment proposal needs to be consulted with the EC prior to voting. The European Commission shall respond to all relevant correspondence on this purpose at an appropriate time. So Section 6 is what complicates this. So previously, Ocean's members could make statutes their own, could make amendments to their own statutes on their own, just internally within Oceans. However, the European Commission took a great interest in Oceans, their statutes, and now want to be consulted on changes. Now, that's negative in the fact that we have to consult the European Commission, which delays any changes. However, it is good because it shows the European Commission cares about Oceans and is interested in their statutes and their ongoing success. So, rules of procedures. So we've been having some of them highlighted, but this is the definition. The rules and procedures are defined supplementary practicalities related to the work of the organisation. Amendments to the rules and procedures are done following the same procedures as those for amending the statutes. The last parts of the rules and procedures coming up. So reporting documentation of breaches in code of conduct. Any member who witnesses or becomes aware of potential breach of code of conduct is obligated to report the incident promptly to the president of the board or the designated member of the advisory committee. The report should be submitted in writing detailing the nature of the breach, individuals involved, date, time, location, supporting evidence of witnesses. Upon receipt, the recipient must acknowledge the report within 24 hours and log it in a confidential incident register via a board email. If the breach is made by a member of the board, the report must be made to the advisory committee. Within 7 days of logging the report, the board will convene and conduct a preliminary assessment to determine the severity and credibility of the alleged breach. The assessment may involve reviewing the submitted report, consulting the involved parties, gathering additional information as necessary. Based on the initial assessment, the board will decide to dismiss the case if unfounded or address the issue through informal resolution. The investigation committee, it's been cut off here, but underneath here there is a section where it is escalated, and this is the escalation part next. So the investigation committee is responsible for conducting thorough interviews with relevant parties, conducting and reviewing pertinent documents and evidence, maintaining confidentiality, impartiality throughout the process. The investigation shall be completed within 14 days of the committee's formation. Upon conclusion of the investigation, the committee will compile a comprehensive report outlining findings, conclusions, and recommendation actions. The report will be submitted to the board within 7 days of completing the investigation. The board will review the report and make a decision on the appropriate course of action within 14 days, which may include no further action if the breach is unsubstantiated, informal resolution measures, or formal disciplinary actions such as suspension or the termination of membership. Communication of outcome. The board will communicate the decision in writing to the individual involved within 7 days of making the decision. A summary of the outcome respecting confidentiality will be shared with the advisory board and other relevant parties as necessary. Monitoring and review. The board will monitor the implementation of any actions taken to ensure compliance and effectiveness. The annual review of this safeguarding procedure will be conducted in corporate lessons learned and upon update the process in line with the best practices of any change in legal or organizational frameworks. Essentially, it is, as I've said previously, a very extreme step to remove a member from Oceans. And so any issue that comes up, we would like to resolve internally and create a change in behaviour. And so if that is taken, there is monitoring and review to ensure this is a genuine change and that the other person is happy. If this doesn't happen, then we would progress to the termination of membership. And that's it. So I hope that you've enjoyed this now. I hope that you've all learned something.